Hello there and welcome to Bodie. You're currently standing at about 8,375 feet and you're actually at the intersection of Main Street and Green Street. And Bodie's heyday, there was 8,000 to 10,000 people here, and the Main Street was almost as wide as where you go from Boardwalk to the Travizeo Hotel here. Currently we have about 10% of the buildings left, 200 structures. Over here we have the morgue. The building behind that morgue is our museum as well as our gift shop. You have the IOOF, the International Odd Fellows building, and the DeChambeau Hotel, where my great-granddad, when he worked here, would stay. And over here you have the Travizeo Hotel, the Wheaton and Lure Hotel, which also was a gambling hall. You have the firehouse. Further down you have Lottie Joel's home, a very famous lady here, and cousin of Daniel Boone, the Boone General Store. Please enjoy our beautiful park. Currently, right now, we're experiencing our beautiful fall colors. So with that, let's go check something else out. You're currently standing at the base of the Standard Consolidating Mining Company's 20 stamp mill. This is Bodie's remaining mill. There was actually 9 in Bodie's heyday that ran on a 6-day-a-week, 24-hour-a-day schedule. The day of rest, Sunday, was actually for repairs as well as rest, as the mill would crush sometimes so much that the stamps would become clogged. The mill would take rocks that were the size of your fist, drop them into a stamp box, and be crushed to the consistency of cinnamon. From there, they'd run across amalgamation tables, which were painted with mercury to attract the gold and silver out. And the larger stuff that did not stick in the amalgamation was then processed on shaker tables. The tailings would then be pushed out of the mill into this flat area and left to dry until later in Bodie's history, where the cyanide process came into play to get that last about 10% out. Standing here is actually a hoistings works to the Standard Mine, bringing up ore, and several ore carts are scattered about. There were over 30 claims staked on the bluff behind us here, and with that, we can go explore the rest of Bodie, maybe off to the red light district. Well, welcome to Bodie's less respectable side of town. As you can see here, we have the jail. We also have the Kirkwood family barn. They're very famous for their barns here in the Eastern Sierras. And beyond that, you can still see the Standard Mill, and you can see the Moyle family's warehouse, and the Bodie Bank vault, or its remains. We also have a Chinese laundry here. Here in Bodie, the saloons ran lengthwise of Main Street, and from there, behind them, would be the cribs for the ladies of the night. That was to us is still known as King Street, but to more affectionately known as Maiden Lane. These ladies would be able to enter the back of the saloons, entice their customers out, and then their customers could return back to their gambling once services were rendered and drinking without fear of judgment. As you can see also, we do have beautiful bluebirds this time of year fluttering around. I personally know them as nanabirds. With that, we can continue to go back into the more respectable side of town and visit some of the homes of Bodie's families. So as we continue through Bodie's family side, I want to share with you a little bit of personal history. On my mother's side, we are related to the Mendocini family. We affectionately know this house as the Mendo family home, but after many pronunciations, we've recently figured out the right one being Mendocini House. Here they were direct immigrants from Italy. The Mr. Mendocini was actually a freighter, just like on my father's side, a freighter here in Bodie. They did have 13 children, not all of which were born in this 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom home. As you can see over here, you can also tell that bathrooms, not as fancy as we have today. You had to trudge through snow and wind to get to your outhouse and back. Late in later years, there was a hallway constructed out to the outhouses. With that note, indoor plumbing was also a challenge here in Bodie. Initially, all drinking water came from the ground below us, but due to mining activities as well as outhouses, that water became contaminated, and a spring was then tapped into about 8 miles to the east here, the west, and then piped into town to feed homes and businesses. Here you can see another home outhouse here. And we're going to go visit the Methodist Church here. Another beautiful view. Further to the west or east of us is our schoolhouse. Here in Bodie, families were definitely prominent, which was kind of unheard of for the atmosphere. But here, families were welcomed. So this is the Miller House, one of the few buildings that you can actually get into here in Bodie. With our stabilization, doesn't always mean that every building is safe and able to be gone into. So this one is one of the safer buildings in Bodie. But as you can see on the kitchen floor, there is some broken bottles and other items that have fallen. In December 2016, Bodie had two 5.7s and a 4.8 earthquake that caused a lot of damage here in Bodie. The DeChambeau Hotel was one of the most severely hit. Being maintenance focused, it has provided us an opportunity to learn more about these buildings and their integrity, and also provides us a learning opportunity on how things were built back in the day. Here in the Miller House, you're actually standing in the dining room. The kitchen is behind you, and the family would be entertaining guests here in the living room. So this is the bedroom. It seems that in a lot of different cultures, it's pays homage to throw money on the bed. I get that question a lot here in the park about the money in these rooms. It is done in remembrance of the family, or in remembrance of prostitutes even, but as far as I know, the Miller family did not partake in that. You can see just how small these homes were. The less space was easier to heat in the winter. Here in Bodie, the lowest recorded temperature was -20, and that is with wind chill. And we normally have 8 to 10 feet of snow. This past winter, 2017 in January, we finally got what we deem a regular winter, with about 4 feet of snow on the ground and 12-foot snow drifts in some places. So having a smaller house was a benefit to be able to heat it. Yes, children didn't get their own rooms. That is a new thing in today's world, where having your own room means you've made it. But here it was very tight sleeping quarters. And like I said, it was done only because winters were so brutal here. With that, we can move on next door. The Millers did live next door to the Methodist church, and we'll go explore that. Welcome to the Kirkwood family home. This is actually one of my favorite homes in Bodie because of a story that I was once told. In the small town where I grew up, the family known as the Deanies now have a casino and restaurant. But here in Bodie, where they originated to, they actually had an ice cream parlor that wasn't exactly an ice cream parlor. Out of the fountains would come alcohol, and at this time it was the Prohibition, so you weren't exactly allowed to have alcohol out. One day the Prohibition riders came to Bodie, and the Deanie family asked the Kirkwood family to use a very secret space in their floor to hide the alcohol until the Prohibition officers left town, and then they went right back to selling their illegal substance. In 1932, they lost their ice cream parlor, so the Deanies moved to Yerington, Nevada to open their casino and restaurant, which is still standing today. They have a very good steak sandwich there. With that, I want you to take a chance and admire Bodie's fall colors. Admire the craftsmanship in the wood. As you can see here, we have done a lot with stabilization to keep these buildings standing. It's part of the contract we signed with the Kane family in 1962 that we would maintain as it was at the date of purchase. So enjoy this quiet moment with Bodie. So this is one of the few buildings here in Bodie you can actually get to see into. This is actually an old sawmill used to cut lumber for Bodie. The Kane family, in their infinite wisdom, decided that it would be a good thing to bring to Bodie to show how wood was processed. Here in Bodie, we're above the tree line. Trees cannot survive here, so this mill was very important to Bodie's sustenance in the form of housing, wood for burning for the mines, because everything here was, before electricity, was all steam powered. It also brings to light stabilization in Bodie. It is called arrested decay, but as I'm learning here in Bodie, it can have many definitions. In the contract that we signed with the Kane family in 1962 at the date of purchase, we are to maintain it as it was at that signing. So if a building happens to fall, we are required to put it back up and put it right back in the same way it was at the date of purchase. We are not allowed to enhance anything or improve anything. It's very simply to keep the town as it was. This mill, I believe, was at Mono Mills, which was on the south shores of Mono Lake. Out the door, on the top of the crest of the bluff, you'll actually see the top of the rail depot that was constructed strictly to bring lumber into Bodie. That was a product of this mill. That was it was a very short one way and back to bring wood in. It never did carry people. People came in by stagecoach or horseback. So. This wood has not been treated with any type of chemicals to make it look this way. This is Mother Nature's doing. Wind, rain, sleet, snow, freezing hot has protected this wood in such a manner to make it so beautiful. So the Methodist Church is the only church left standing in Bodie. And with that brings up the topic of the Catholics versus the Methodists. The year was 1881, and both churches were very eager to get their churches up. It actually came down to a matter of days in which the Methodists won, the Catholics won in that battle of who opened their doors first to the first congregation. Church services were held prior, but they were held in the Miners Union Hall as well as in the IOOF Hall. There was no actual church building for them to have their services in. So they say that the day the churches went up, the mines went down. In 1882, the Methodists and the Catholics both opened their doors. And it was a few years later that under mysterious circumstances, the Catholics lost their church to a fire. The church did not go on for very many years since town went down, the population dropped very quickly. In the 1930s was the actual last operational mining done, because the president at the time declared that any mining done had to be done for the war effort, if not to terminate and end. So that was the actual last time that we're sure that the mill ran, as well as ore was pulled out of Bodie. With that, I want to say thank you for coming to visit Bodie. We're very, very honored to have your presence. I do want to let you know that if this at all has brought to mind what would have it looked like, we do have an opportunity for that. The second Saturday of every August is Friends of Bodie Day. The town comes alive as it was in the 1870s. Mules and wagons on Main Street. You will get to meet some living characters from Bodie's history. People dressed in time period clothing. It is a day that you don't want to miss. Yes, it is very busy, but it is worth the parking hazards. So please come join us again, and we look forward to seeing you on Friends of Bodie Day 2018.